When we last saw the Firebird on this channel, it was slowly limping into the barn to be stored over winter, and I had replaced it with a cheap beater car in the meantime. But it was always in the back of my mind, and the time has come for it to rise again. Apologies if this video is a bit less fancy than my others. It's kind of hard to film and swap an engine at the same time. Step 1 was removing the old engine. It took way less time to disassemble everything since nothing was rusted fast like the last time, and it also helped that I invested in some cordless power tools. And then things kind of started going downhill. See this chunk here? That came out of the oil pan, which is a good sign of a bad sign. Upon further investigation, I discovered that my lifters were concave, and they are not supposed to be. It turns out I made a noob mistake. When I was calculating the valve lift versus the bind height of the valve springs, I figured that any amount of clearance was enough. It turns out you need a lot more than 2 to 3 thousandths of an inch, like 20 times more. So I ordered a new cam and lifters and added a set of valve locks that raised the spring retainers by 50 thousandths of an inch. I then installed those in this 3.4 liter V6 that I got from Facebook Marketplace. It was rebuilt by Jasper Motors about 5,000 miles ago, and despite the horror stories I've read about Jasper, we looked everything over with a fine-tooth comb, and it seems to be very well put together. If you're wondering, I went this route because it was way cheaper than rebuilding the engine, and it had a little extra displacement, which was a nice bonus. Putting it in turned out to be a bit difficult because we couldn't get the nose of the torque converter to seat into the crank properly. It turns out the 3.4 liter manual transmission cars have a bushing inserted in them to reduce the diameter of that hole. Once it was out, it bolted up perfectly. Unfortunately though, my misfortune knows no limits. See this here? It's the intake assembly. It's comprised of 3 pieces: the base, the lower plenum, and the upper plenum. Between the base and the lower plenum are a series of studs that at first glance appear to be the same length, but are actually slightly different. If just the right ones are switched around, it'll create a small gap in the back of the intake assembly that's impossible to see while the car is assembled. And that vacuum leak will cause it to immediately rev to redline as soon as you start the car. I spent over a month trying to track down this problem before finally throwing in the towel. It was winter at this point, so I figured I'd wait until spring and find a shop to look at it. And the hits just kept coming. It hadn't even been in the barn for 2 months, and the whole car decided to mold inside. Literally, the whole thing. It was disgusting. So I had to take apart the entire inside and clean everything before I could even get in the car to take it somewhere. But finally, once all that was done, I found a local shop who was reluctantly willing to take on the project. It took them all of a day to hook up a smoke machine, find the gap, correct it, and have the car running perfectly. And words cannot describe the satisfaction of finally making some meaningful progress after 2 long years. Hearing this car run and seeing it on the road, driving home after literally hundreds of hours of work, and having the worst part, knock on wood, finally over was fantastic. It didn't run perfect right away because it was still tuned for the stock 3.1 liter engine, but I was expecting that. This is the 𝙂𝙀𝘼 from Dynamic EFI. It's an add-on board for the factory ECU that makes it fully programmable from a laptop via USB, adds a trip computer, and more. It can even auto-tune itself, much like a Holley Sniper EFI system. After a few hours of driving with the auto-tune setting enabled, plus some manual adjustments from yours truly, the car runs like a dream. Which means I can finally move on to simpler, easier things like making the car waterproof or sound deadening material. But that I will save for the next video. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, hit like, get subscribed, and ring the bell so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. And I will see you guys in the next one.